girl and she wants me to duke her. I told her I'll come scoop her around 8. She said, that sounds great. Shorty girl's a trooper. No matter what I need her to do, she be like,
woo, ooey, yeehaw, zing, zabam, bazinga. Welcome to
Holy cow.
D-Wiz. Welcome to Push to Shout, episode 101. Most wonderfulest episode there is. I never actually played that game.
I think the last episode was better.
It was pretty good. I like that one. I think it was a better guest appearance than our first.
Well, you know, we
didn't
only
start
attract the
with a
best here
V-meme.
at Push to Shout.
Okay.
All right.
Well, welcome to the show, guys. We got some stuff to talk about. I do, at least. I don't know about you. You may be an empty-headed nothing, contributing nothing, worth nothing, as usual. But I'll throw you a bone. I'll cast a line out there. What have you been up to?
That's not really casting me a line. That's more just like putting me in the spot. But
it's like
I've been
hang yourself with it.
Tossing me a bone would be like, hey, here's that video game you forgot to mention.
I'll bone you.
Of which there isn't, because the only game I've been playing for the last week is DCS, Digital Combat Simulator.
That's that Vive pilot one, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not for the Vive, but I do use it. And it works pretty well, except for the frame rate. I need to upgrade my CPU. To upgrade my CPU, I have to upgrade my motherboard too. So I'm like not looking forward to doing all that.
Oh yeah.
And I'm putting it off. And I really need to just
that's like the most involved thing to upgrade.
Yeah, and like, yeah, the last time I tried to upgrade my motherboard, I had to like install a new copy of Windows and like get a new key from them and all that shit. And so I really don't want to go through all that.
They say you don't have to do that, but I've never, not that I've replaced my motherboard all that often, but like both times I've had to reinstall everything.
Yeah, so I'm nervous about that, but I do need to pull the trigger pretty soon because like my CPU is such a major bottleneck. Now that I've got 1070, like my computer should be running much faster than it is because my CPU is holding it back so much. So, yeah.
What's your CPU?
It is a. I don't know. It's not an i. It's
when did you buy it?
A while ago. It's probably been shit. Skyrim was coming out when I bought my new computer, and it's the original one in this computer that I built. So it's that old. However old Skyrim is.
So is your motherboard like the last plank in
my motherboard
Theseus's
will
ship?
not like I've got one of the more modern CPUs to come out on this is the higher end that this motherboard supports. I can get a faster one, but they cost like ridiculous. Like I could easily buy a better CPU and motherboard that costs less than the CPU. Because I guess there's a lot of demand for them because of people in my situation where they don't want to upgrade their motherboard, but they do want to upgrade their CPU. So these older CPUs are like priced ridiculously high, and it's pretty like I'm talking like $500 and for not that great of a CPU. It's completely absurd. But so I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna upgrade my motherboard for sure. But yeah, kind of procrastinating on that one. But yeah, DCS, I don't know how much there is to say about it. That's just not going to bore the shit out of everyone. So I don't know, but I'm learning more and more about that game. That game is really involved, and if you want to actually like learn your way into that game and play it competently, it takes many hours of just learning, like just sitting down and learning shit. And you can learn through doing, but it takes time. And God, it's just way more involved than I thought because like there's the modules like the A10, which has everything simulated. Every button in the cockpit does the actual function that it does in real life. And so obviously that's a huge learning curve. But the fact that you can look around the cockpit and see a label on a button and flip the switch and it does what the label says it does makes it easier in some ways than their other modules that don't have the fully simulated cockpit, because then everything you're doing is a button on your keyboard or HOTAS, my joystick and throttle. And that makes it way harder because then you have to remember all that bullshit. And you can't just like in the A10, if I get stuck somewhere and I'm like, oh God, how do I do this thing? Well, I know like, okay, here's the vague area that I think it's in, and oh, here we go, but not so if I forget the key on my keyboard. So it's kind of a nightmare. I don't recommend that game to anyone. Although
Really?
I have been drawing people in from the Arma group
You don't
to
recommend
play
it
with
to
me.
anyone.
No, I don't mean that. I just mean like
You wouldn't indiscriminately recommend it.
for you to actually get into this game, you have to be dedicated. You have to say, I want to learn about these stupid airplanes in a very detailed way. Like even the simplest airplanes, like the F-15 is there. They've got a few dogfighting planes that are kind of your simpler stuff. You're more, I guess you would call arcadey. But I'm starting to learn that shit, and it's like there's like all these different radar modes, and I don't understand. Like the basic concept of radar is kind of hard to understand. And there's like radar warning receiver where you've got all these numbers and shit that represent different things that you just have to learn what they mean. It's unbelievable, but I'm still having fun with it. It crashes all the time. It glitches out. The frame rate gets unbearably low, and I have to restart the game. Stuff like that.
Does that cause major problems for you in VR, like when the frame rate tanks?
So both headsets, both Oculus and Vive, have this technology where if the frame rate gets really low, I guess what it does is it kind of like simulates your movement, even with a single frame. So like, say you're running at one frame per second. Say you're running at 1 frame per second, and you move your head left to right, like rotating it.
Yeah.
What it'll do is it'll rotate that 1 frame in reference to your head. So even though you're running at a low frame rate, the headset movement is running at 90 FPS.
Got it. All right.
And so it's uncomfortable, but it's not sickness inducing.
Okay. It's not like your entire world is down to okay.
So yeah, that's a really, if it didn't have that, this game would probably not be playable, because like I can play this game at below 30 frames per second in a VR headset and not get sick or anything. So that's something that I guess Vive didn't support initially, and they added it in due to popular request. But God, it makes a load of difference. And yeah, sometimes like a couple of the times the game has crashed, it would just pause, and then the headset would stop tracking, and that is the weirdest thing. It's just so weird because you're sitting there in the cockpit and you move, and I can't even describe it. It's like the whole world moves with you, and you go, ugh! And it's bad. So that kind of shit like makes you like rip off your headset. But I have a strong stomach.
That's not something that I would have ever seen before.
Exactly. Like, it's a completely new sensation.
Wow. Okay.
And every once in a while, like when I start like moving like if I'm looking down in the cockpit in this weird way that makes it lose tracking, it'll kind of jitter a little bit. But that's not too bad. It kind of makes you go, ooh, but then it kind of regains its tracking, and it's not nearly as disorienting as when the whole world just stops and you can't. That shit's just crazy. And the very first time I got up in a plane in VR was really, really, really disorienting. Like you do a barrel roll and it's like, this is just really bizarre. But it for me, it took very little time to get used to it. It was the same as being in the race car. That was very disorienting for the first couple of laps that I played it. But yeah, so I do recommend a DCS to anyone who is just itching to dive really deep into a simulation and learn a lot about a plane or a helicopter or something like that.
Something autistic like that. Something
exactly. Yeah. If you're having an autistic itch, then this will scratch it for sure. It's pretty crazy, but it also has like really cool moments. The thing is, like, you can do really cool shit in that game, but you have to work to get there a lot. Like over the weekend, I was flying with Boone from the Arma group that I play with. I taught him how to start and manage the P-51, which is a World War II airplane that should be relatively simple, and it kind of is, but there's concepts that you've never even heard of in it, or at least I haven't, where I've heard of propeller pitch. So under the throttle, there's another throttle for the propeller pitch. And I'd heard of that, but I didn't really know how it worked. And it took me the longest time to figure out what the hell is going on with this thing, because if you put it all the way forward, your engine overheats and seizes. And if you pull it all the way back, you don't get enough power. And so you had to put it somewhere in the middle. But I knew that there's got to be some like magic thing for it. And I'm not going to explain it, but basically like you learn the concept to manage the engine so you're not overheating and stuff. And even then, you have to sit there and watch the temperature gauge as you would in real life, because if it starts overheating, you have to dive and throttle back and autistic shit like that. But
that is a lot of detail.
Yeah, and so I had to kind of, teach him that for a few hours to get to the point where we could fly together. And then it's a ton of fun because we're like flying through these valleys, like kind of, nose to tail.
I didn't know
and
it
I'm
was
following
multiplayer.
him, and I've got my headset, and so I'm like out beside him, and I can look through my left window at him, and that's just unbelievably cool. You do like a barrel roll over him, and I'm looking up at him,
That's
and
cool.
it's awesome. But yeah, you got to work to get there. And I think that that's part of what makes it so awesome is like there's a certain amount of satisfaction to mastering the game and getting to the point where you're competent. And that's where the reward comes from. But anyway, that is all I've been playing. This has been going on for a few weeks. I've watched a lot of Rick and Morty.
Good
to
show.
completely change the subject. It's a
very
great
good
show. It's really, really good. I mean, I knew it was good. I'd seen some clips of it, but like, God, I love that they take these sci-fi concepts and run with them as far as you can run with them, and squeeze all the comedy out of it. And it's just, I love it.
They name all their aliens and alien planets after like the George Lucas school of thought, where it's just these stupid like the Galorpians, the Zablons from Quagmire 5.
I love the shit where just like something really, really horrible happens, like really terrible, and you're sitting there like, oh my God, like just I'm not just gonna like explain a scene out of that show, but there's just so much shit where like it's that I'm laughing and I shouldn't be laughing kind of humor. And I love it. So that's a great show. It's like if Family Guy was a sci-fi show and good instead of bad.
Yeah,
It's like that.
yeah. It's got to be good for one.
Yeah.
That's usually what I look for in a show.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, this is kind of related. I was just thinking about Seth MacFarlane shows the other day, like American Dad, Family Guy, and whatever the other one is, Cleveland Show.
Cleveland Show, yeah.
And what a like disgusting style of animation and comedy. It's so fucking bad.
The comedy doesn't even bother me. Like the comedy, I think I could watch an episode of that and laugh some and be like, whatever, this is fine. The animation has gotten to the point I just can't stand it. It has zero style. It's
like a Newgrounds cartoon.
It's awful. Everyone has their eyes half closed for some reason, and I look at it and I get angry. I get angry at how lazy that show is. But we're repeating the same shit that everyone's been saying on the internet for like a decade. So,
but it's easy to forget now that those days of Seth MacFarlane feel mostly behind us. It's easy to forget what exactly we've put
There's
behind
Seth
us.
MacFarlane sympathizers out there too. That I understand
Seth
where
heads.
they're coming from.
No Seth heads allowed.
Because there are good merits. I'll give Family Guy credit. It can be very funny. But
I like the one where the baby was smart and he killed the mom because he didn't like her.
I like the one where the dog died so that people would talk about the show again because it was dying.
And then brought him back.
And then they brought him back the next episode and everyone stopped talking about it.
I like
nobody watched it.
That was a television classic.
A huge moment in television history.
Yeah, fuck those shows. Rick and Morty's good though.
Rick and Morty's great.
Well, I got a game to talk about. I started playing the original Fear. I never played any game in the series yet, but I just decided to play Fear 1.
Stick with Fear 1. I mean, the other ones actually are okay, but Fear 1 is just miles ahead.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
For now, I mean, I'm having a fucking blast. Like this, I love everything about it so far. It's just what was immediately striking. The gameplay is great, the AI is incredible, but what just immediately was shockingly good is like the physics and the effects when you're actually shooting people.
Yeah.
Like, I take my pistol, my dinky little pistol in any other game, and first enemy I encounter, I like tap it as fast as I can, and then like his shoulders are flying back as I shoot the individual points, and then he like flies up and back, and there's blood everywhere, and like all these particle effects coming off of him, and he's reacting realistically, and wow. Just, oh my god, the attention to detail. And then it only gets better when you mix in the slow motion, and the reactions are just so immediate and physical and powerful for all the guns. And if you miss, if you shoot the wall, then there's like individual particle effects for every surface you can shoot, and like taking chunks out of the drywall, or sparks off of the pipes, or...
There's moments in that, the best moments in Fear are when you run into a room full of enemies and you just fuck shit up in a span of like 5 seconds, and then you slow-mo it, you go back to normal speed, and like the light is swinging back and forth and flickering, and there's smoke everywhere and blood everywhere, and it's just like, whoa, and it just happens like really quickly, and it's that game, I cannot speak, that is one of the best first-person shooters of all time, no doubt.
I already agree.
Fucking great. Yeah, and the technology of it is it and Stalker were so far ahead of their time. Those are the two games I think of as like they were doing stuff like dynamic shadows and physics and particle effects good in a way that other video games didn't. Like other video games might have one of those things,
and a lot of them still haven't tried. Like the shadows.
Well, dynamic shadows are like when's the last game you played where you could really notice like the shadows looked any good? Like I feel like lighting has kind of taken a back seat lately in gaming, and it's always been like one of the most important things graphically for me has been a good lighting engine, and I just don't see it anymore. I see realistic lighting engines that look fine, but there was a time where I guess because lighting was new and gimmicky, like they purposely put parts in the level where like things have long shadows and look really cool, and now it's like I don't know,
like Fear,
it's no fun anymore, I guess.
Fear, the light swinging back and forth, it'll cast shadows on everything around it, and what I noticed pretty early on, which I thought was really cool, is that your character casts a shadow on the environment. So sometimes you'll like see a shadow on the hallway, and it's like, oh, that's me. Not something that most games do, and Fear does it still better than a lot of the games that try. And that is definitely true of like the physics for characters as you shoot them. I mean, I haven't seen a game really do that where they react so like immediately and directly to how and where you're shooting them.
There's a game that I'm thinking of and I can't remember it, but there was a good example of that in a relatively modern game where like enemies had reactions to where you would shoot them and stuff. But I can't think of it. But that stuff is way more important than I think a lot of. On the one hand, like you can look at it and say like, well, it's not even gameplay. Like you're talking about shit that's just like aesthetic, but it is gameplay in a sense. In Fears, if you shoot someone in Fear with the assault rifle in the upper chest and head area, there's a satisfaction to it because of the way the enemy reacts and the way the bullets hit that is non-existent in other games, in similar games.
It definitely is gameplay. Like that's really what gameplay is. It's the feedback loop of you input something and then some output happens, and it's all about like the visual, audio, and like objective based feedback that you get from the stuff that you do. And so if enemies react much better to shooting them, then that's a gameplay improvement. That stuff's so important. The feeling of playing it moment to moment is what sells it for me. Like, I have not disliked a second of the game so far. Like, it's all been just tight and I've never been frustrated or confused about what to do.
When you were trying to stream it last night, you were in the rooftops of that building, like the office building level, and that's, I think, to me, that's the high point of that game. The office building is really awesome.
Yeah, I think I'm like halfway through it or something. I just got out, and then like your own guys are shooting you. ACS, I don't know what they're called, but going through that office facility. Okay, the fat guy was so fucking funny. First of all, gotta give a shout out to him.
God, I'd forgotten about him.
He's like
completely.
huge, and
yeah, wow.
But also, like,
there's a lot of plot in that game that I kind of forgot about. But that's another thing about I actually genuinely like that plot a lot. Actually, it's pretty good.
Cool,
like if you listen to all the little voicemails and stuff, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm interested in the story too, which I wasn't expecting to be. All I saw for years was like the girl from The Ring and some guns. So I wasn't expecting all that much really in that regard, but I'm interested in like who am I actually playing as, and I kind of feel monstrous in a way, like the protagonist is kind of like a weirdo monster, because you just think about like, okay, what if you saw what you were doing at like normal speed?
Exactly,
it would just be some like maniac tearing into a room, eliminating all life within it in 3 seconds. Like, there's something up there. I want to find out what it is.
Have you not to spoil anything, but you're probably already aware that these are in the game. Have you encountered like a mech?
Mech?
I guess I have spoiled it. There's a moment. Things start to ramp up in that game, and there's a moment.
What do you mean by mech? Like the mini boss people, or?
It's a mech. It's a thing. It's a robot that someone sits inside that shoots at you.
Would I immediately know it's a mech and not a guy in armor? Because there are those dudes that like burst through the doors.
It's been a long time.
There are these dudes that like kick doors down and they're covered in armor and you know what I'm talking about? They're like the silver dudes with the blue eyes.
I think there's a difference, and I'm getting kind of like Fear 2 had a lot of mech stuff in it. Like you could even like pilot one at one point, and I'm trying to remember if I'm just remembering Fear 2 instead, because that was one of the few things that I remember very fondly of Fear 2 was there were these. They were Titanfalls, basically. Like they would come in from the fucking sky and drop out of this pod and just slam onto the ground and then start fucking shit up. And it was fucking awesome.
Fear 2 had mechs that dropped from the sky.
Yeah.
That you would get in.
And Fear 1 might also have those. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure Fear 1 has them. I don't know if they drop from the sky. I don't think they do. But yeah. That game goes places. That game goes places, yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to finish it. It's the pacing of it. Half-Life 2 is like the benchmark that everybody brings up when it comes to a first-person campaign pacing. And this just, again, immediately reminded me of that, where like you can tell that the levels were constructed in a way so that you're going to experience ups and downs on a very smooth curve. Like they even do that like moment to moment. Like you'll see the girl, I don't know what her name is.
Alma.
I don't think I've been told in the game yet. But you'll see Alma. You'll be like, it's kind of hard to explain this with words, but you'll be walking along this catwalk, and then there's like a window inside to an office. And you'll look inside, and she's in there. And then you walk around the corner and inside, and then she's gone. Or there's like a pillar that you're going to cross in front of. And as you walk across it, on one side you see her, and then as soon as you pass through, she's gone. Like, they plan out these little moments where it'll, like, she'll disappear and appear in exactly the right way, depending on where you are. And they really take that approach and apply it to the whole game, too. Like, going through the office building and that slow build up where you're just seeing a bunch of bodies everywhere, and then like it kicks up to 11 when those crazy cloaked experiment dudes start like ninjaing out of nowhere and screaming
I
at
forgot
you.
about
And
those too.
they were
Those
so
are fucking
cool.
scary.
They were. They made me like the first one I saw made me jump because it's like hiding inside a little cubicle.
Yeah, we discussed it briefly in Steam chat yesterday, but I played that game. I was probably 13, 14, 15, somewhere around there. And I was legitimately freaked out. That was the first scary game that I ever played. And Alma freaked the shit out of me every time she appeared. And that stuff you mentioned of her like disappearing and appearing, like that was such a novel concept to me and so scary to be playing a game and like not know where someone is. Like that kind of thing just freaked me out. And those ninja people, oh yeah, they jump out of I know exactly the moment you're talking about where it jumps out of the cubicle at you. And yeah, that game I had to play it in pretty small bursts because it stressed me out. God, I want to play through it again. But I know you mentioned that the scares maybe don't hold up so well.
Yeah,
and I believe you.
It definitely doesn't have the same edge that it must have in 2005.
Yeah,
when it came out.
Yeah.
I actually kind of laughed out loud at one of the parts that I think was meant to make you jump. You know, I forget his name, but he's like I don't know what his purpose in the story is, but he's obviously like the red herring dude. He's the guy. Yeah, whatever.
The bad guy.
Yeah,
that hits
he's
you in
the
the face
guy.
with a 2x4.
Exactly. When he jumps out from behind that corner and hits you in the face, tries to do a menacing speech. I was just laughing at it, the way his face looked.
Man, that's like the part that I remember the most of like making me jump out of my seat, because the way that they build that up is like you're walking through this whole level where there's like no enemies basically, but things kind of move around a little bit and things start to get creepy and like the architecture starts to get confusing and not make sense, and so I was like really on the edge, and just the last thing that I expected was for him to pop out and fucking hit me in the face. And so, yeah, that got me when I first played it for sure. I don't know why it didn't get you, because I feel like even today, the shock of him stepping out and hitting you, I guess it enters in like a little bit of a cutscene.
It startled me, and it does enter a little cutscene, but yeah, it's like the scary elements, because so many games have like adapted what Fear did and try to do it themselves. Like
I was going to mention that, where like Fear kind of changed that entire. I don't even know if you call it a genre, but yeah.
But that stuff, it's not like scary.
Yeah.
Part of that's just probably being older than you were. But
and seeing more of it, like you mentioned, I do think that makes it like if you play through PT, it's a lot scarier,
right?
You know,
yes, exactly,
a lot more effective. But PT uses some tricks that I would argue probably maybe don't originate from Fear, but were evolved from Fear.
For
like
sure.
Looking through the little crack in the doorway and having that woman's face appear is something that would happen in Fear. You know, that kind of thing where it like waits for the player to interact with something to scare them.
And specifically, one thing in PT that I think might have been inspired indirectly from Fear was when you're walking down the hallway and you see the lady standing under the red light and you see her silhouette, and then the lights cut out for a second and flick back on, and then it's just bright white, she's gone, cockroaches crawling everywhere. Like, that seems like something that Fear could have had some hand in inspiring.
And I think something that Fear got right, that's hard to get right, is it does give you those shocking moments, those jump scares. But it gives them in moments where you don't feel vulnerable, but then for the rest of the game you do. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like so that cubicle thing. Like after that, I was like corner checking everything.
For the rest of the level, you're walking past cubicles constantly. So you have to like be on your toes the whole time. Someone mentioned in the chat the thing that made me bring it up. I don't know if you've had the ladder moment.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Well, that's another spoiler. Sorry, but there is a moment on a ladder.
Okay, all right. No, I don't want to know.
But like think of like any conventional video game level, and there's a scary moment somewhere there that keeps you on your toes where otherwise you wouldn't be. crawling through vents and all that shit. I remember a vent moment too. I think that was So
it's a tense game.
Yeah.
It doesn't have like a genuinely scary horror edge anymore, I think, but like the atmosphere definitely holds up.
Mm-hmm.
And the tension.
I think that's one of the things that it did really strongly was that the atmosphere. Interestingly enough, I don't remember much about the multiplayer. I didn't play a huge amount of it, but it was pretty popular. The multiplayer was, and that atmosphere permeated the multiplayer levels too in a weird way.
Really?
Like, yeah, there was a kind of a tension there too. Like, their multiplayer levels are pretty much just pulled out from the single player. You know, it's that kind of thing. But I remember kind of the multiplayer kind of has like it has a very similar feel to the single player somehow. I mean, it's still your like standard like team deathmatch and stuff, but they keep the atmosphere and it's kind of effective. But anyway, yeah, I love Fear. I don't talk about it a lot, but I should because I think it's a defining FPS, and I need to play through it again.
Having been playing it now, I'm surprised it's taken me this long to actually try it because I mean it's just so good.
Well, I think like you said, from an outside perspective, it doesn't pull you in. Like it doesn't seem all that appealing, especially now where it's like, okay, this older game that's supposed to be all scary and has like a bunch of lame looking shit in it. And it's called Fear, Fear. It's just stupid. If I hadn't played that game, I would never play it at this point because it just looks dumb. But it's not. It's fucking awesome.
One of the things that deterred me from it was actually like Alma herself. Because I saw The Ring.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was okay. It's the Ring girl, but in a video game.
And it kind of is, and someone in the chat mentioned you can drop kick people in the face like Jackie Chan, so it ruins the atmosphere.
That was so cool.
Yeah, I love that shit. I would have so much fun in multiplayer.
You can do that in the single player though.
Yeah, and you can do it in the multiplayer, and it's great, and the animations look real silly, and that game's special.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait to finish it out, and I heard Fear 3 blows. I heard it absolutely blows.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Fear 2 doesn't even come close to living up to anything that Fear 1 does, but is okay, I think, because the plot is kind of an interesting carryover. Like they kind of continue the plot in an interesting way, at least with Fear 2. And the gameplay's more of a standard first-person shooter, but still okay. But 3's not good. 3 has moments that are interesting, but I played through all of 3, and the only thing that makes it, I think, redeemable is the fact that it's a co-op campaign. And if you're playing anything co-op, you're gonna have some fun with it. But that's gonna ruin. But it's like Fear co-op doesn't really compute. But at least you can have fun with it because it's co-op. That's it.
Fear, the first one, like from what I am seeing, is defined and is good because of its attention to detail, like the animations, the atmosphere, the way that scripted events happen, the way that enemy AI works, the way that combat in arenas are designed so that you can use like proximity mines, and like the way everything is thought through. It shows that they were paying attention to the details. And even if the technology improved substantially between Fear 1, 2, and 3 or whatever, like the only thing that matters is the amount of care that was put into the game. And if that's not there, then you're not going to have...
Yeah, Fear 2... So Fear 2 is Fear in a post-Call of Duty 4 world.
Ooh.
Yeah. So you kind of know what to expect there. So it's like... But it's like... It is competently done. It's like, okay... It's if a developer, this is basically probably what happened. I don't know the story behind Fear 2, but it's like, okay, a separate developer looks at Fear and says, well, let's make a sequel to that, but also just make it in the style of your typical first person shooter campaign that people have been making lately in the spirit of Call of Duty 4. But do it competently enough and make it unique enough. Like it's not like it's not like they just went to Call of Duty. It's not that. But you have the aim down the sights shit and stuff like that where it feels more like that game. And then scripted sequences that feel more Call of Duty-ish than Fear-ish to me. but I like the Call of Duty 4 campaign, and I think that Fear 2 kind of does that in a competent way. So I don't want to like brush off Fear 2 as like, okay, it's just modern FPS garbage that took the Fear name, because I do think it has a lot of redeemable aspects to it. It's probably worth playing because you could probably pick it up for like $5 tops. So it's going to be worth that. Yeah.
So yeah, that's Fear. I like it a lot. I'm gonna finish it. Good game. Okay, I want to tell you about something fucking retarded I've been watching that I've just been completely addicted to for like a 24-hour span.
Is it anime?
No, it's called Caught in Providence.
Okay.
It's actually Caught in Providence. It's a like television show that's I think aired on like local TV in Providence, Rhode Island, and then they upload every episode to YouTube, and it's like the lower municipal court of Providence, Rhode Island, and it is just like every episode is like 20 some cases of like the smallest shit, and it's not like Judge Judy or Judge Joe Brown or whatever, like where they're arbitrators who kind of have a set that is this is just like this ancient
an actual
judge
courtroom
who is like 80 some years old. There's like Judge Shapiro or something, like he's like an old Judge Caprio. He's like an old kind of Italian guy, like 80s or something at least. And he just takes these cases and he's got a lot of water in his mouth, and there's a very fat inspector who sits by the side of the court. He gives recommendations about what the state would like to pursue in this case. It's going to be $85. He loves to give out rulings for $85 because that's how much a red light violation costs in Providence, Rhode Island, which I now know. I could tell you a lot about traffic law in Rhode Island right now. I really could just wipe the floor.
Why are you watching? How did you find this? What is?
I saw a clip of him like it was some, I forget exactly what the clip I saw was, but I thought it was funny. Basically, a lot of the cases are him cutting somebody a break because it's the light was turning red.
So you ran the light.
Before you, can we get the lights down, please? Okay, let's look at the tape. And then he plays the tape, and then he's like, Inspector, how long was the light red? 0.3 seconds, Judge. Okay. Now, the statute says that 0.2 seconds is the grace period typically allowed. I tend to go more lenient. So 0.3 seconds, the matter is dismissed.
This sounds all right. You're selling it.
It actually is
right now.
like entertaining. It is an entertaining show. And part of what makes it so entertaining is the incredibly low production value. Like, the show is produced by the judge's brother. Now, keep in mind, this is like an 80-year-old judge, so his brother is also up there in years. And he just sits in the corner of the courtroom with like a camera. They got like a few cameras, and it's not like a completely amateur operation, but it's like definitely kind of like a public. It's not public access. I think it airs on like the local ABC or something, but it's definitely not like a big budget thing, and it's very real. You have people like stumbling over their excuses of why they shouldn't have to pay their parking ticket, and he'll like mess with people because in one episode you'll see like 10 cases, because that's how long actual cases in traffic court take.
Yeah.
It's just like in and out. The tape caught you going through the red light. Do you have anything to tell me about this? Well, I couldn't see the light in front of me. Well, that's clearly not true. The case, you get $85. $85. But then there's also like cases that also must be like a lot of the time taken up by these lower courts, which is like extremely poor, like homeless people, alcoholics, just like brought in for the 50th time, and Like it gets sad at some parts, and it's just like it's a real courtroom. It's a real lower courtroom in a big American city, and he's like the elderly chief judge who has lots of thoughts about what the law should be, and he likes to be fair. He likes to give the state what they're owed. He likes to take into account people's personal situations, and so you balance the scales of justice in that way. That's what he says. He balances the scales of justice. It's a really entertaining show. I recommend it. And the narrator,
I'm sold on it.
the narrator for it, I don't know who the fuck this is, but he's a guy doing like an obnoxious. Maybe it's real. I don't know, but it's like a completely it has to be somewhat faked. It's like an over-the-top Rhode Island Boston accent where he's like, "Court in Providence will be right back after these messages." And that's preserved in the YouTube uploads, by the way. Like some like local TV ads from Providence, Rhode Island will start playing. And but then he plays it up when they like plug the social media stuff. It's like, check us out on the Facebook and the Instagrams. It's fun. Yeah, I recommend it.
I found a local commercial. I'd seen some of this judge's local commercials, but then I saw this one. Not judge. This is a lawyer. Some of his commercials and thought they were kind of funny. And then I saw one posted on Twitter that I liked a lot. It's an ambulance chaser, and he makes no bones about his role in the judicial system. And he made this ad where he goes, "When I go after the insurance companies," and it zooms out, he's holding a rifle, and he's in a deer blind in the middle of the woods.
Oh my God.
Says, "I don't hunt for the small doe," and it goes down his rifle scope, and there's a doe, and it's made out of a $1 bill is its body. And it jumps away, and the scope moves. He goes, "I go after the big bucks," and there's a buck with big antlers and a $100 bill on it, and he shoots it, and he hits it in the head, and his head explodes into money.
That's good.
And yeah, that's an Alabama lawyer who he'll go to bat for you, attorney at law. These like take down the insurance companies.
The lawyers like that have really embraced the Saul Goodman style. Once that became like kind of popular, they just own it. I saw a billboard that was "Better Call Paul."
That's good.
Yeah.
There's always been those that have like the sense of humor about them, and we've got one in the state who is by far the most famous because he has a billboard. Like almost every other billboard is an average. His name's Alexander Shannara, and he's all over the fucking place. I mean, he's become famous, legit famous in the state. Everyone knows who he is.
I think every state has like the one TV lawyer like that. For us, it's Science and Kirk.
Yeah, so, God. I hate them, but you kind of gotta love them too.
They're part of
American culture.
Fabric of America, yeah. You need these sleazy ass lawyers. They keep the whole ship afloat. So yeah, Court in Providence. I recommend.
Okay, I might check that one out.
And other than that, I haven't really done much. I replayed Cave Story. I don't know if that happened between the last podcast. I replayed that whole game. I did a stream of it. And just played the whole game in one night. And that game, it's still just one of my favorites. I can pick up that game and play it anytime. It's just something about it. It's so easy to just get back into and start playing again. It feels really nice. But every time, the lack of an ability to skip cutscenes gets more and more frustrating because there are those dialogue scenes. Like the very first thing in the game is like a dialogue sequence, so there's no way to skip it, even though I've played the game like 50 fucking times.
That's what blows my mind about speedrunners who play these games that have like a lot of stuff like that in them. Yeah. And it's like, how do you do it? How do you sit through that shit?
I was thinking about that specifically when I was replaying it because there's like a little, not like a gimmick, but a little quirk to how you advance through the dialogue where you hold down the button and then it like speeds up faster, but it won't like automatically advance to the next line of dialogue or anything. You then have to let go and then press the dialogue.
Strategy to it.
Exactly. So if you were actually trying to maximize like your efficiency moving through the dialogue scenes, you can't mash the button as fast as you can. You actually have to precisely hit the button to advance the dialogue quickly, let go at the exact moment that the dialogue is complete, and then hit it again and hold it until the next. Like, if you actually tried to speedrun that, you would have to consider the dialogue and how you're speedrunning the dialogue. But that's complete tangent. The game is very good. It's probably like my 6th or 7th time just doing a complete playthrough of it. It hasn't ever gotten old. I'll go back to that game for like years and years, definitely. I like to play that game like a good solid playthrough, like at least once a year. That more most of the time.
Yeah, I don't have any games like that. I have games where I get reminded of them and I'm like, holy shit, I would love to play that game again. And sometimes I do. Like Morrowind, I install that once every 2 or 3 years probably. Don't play very much of it, but just go in and mess around with it and get that nostalgia. But
well, the difference is that if you know your way around Cave Story, it's like a 3, 4, or 5 hour game or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. It's also part of what makes Cave Story great is the gameplay, not so for Morrowind. So that's how a lot of my favorite games are, is like they're not gameplay focused games, so they're not all very great to go back to. But so it goes.
I don't have anything more to say about Cave Story, but the guy made a different game that came out recently, Carol Blaster, which I've talked about before. I replayed that after replaying Cave Story, and there was a minor little change that I want to mention because it's very baffling, and I don't know why a developer would think something like this is a good idea. There is a hidden item in Carol Blaster called the Kuro Blaster, and it's the best weapon in the game. Like, all the enemies you fight, they're like these little black blobs who kind of eat everything. And if you find the Kuro Blaster, then it shoots like 1,000 of them out of a gun per second, and you can upgrade it 2 more times, and then you get like the most ridiculous, craziest weapon in the game. It's hard to find. It's not like an easy to find secret. And the way you accessed it in the original version of the game was you play the level called like the Water Hotel or Hotel XOXO. It's something that you like go down into the water, and at the very end, after you finish a boss, you get a jetpack. Well, if you then backtracked through the entire level with that jetpack that you got, you have to walk through every screen and then go back to the first screen of the level. Then you can hop up to this slightly out of reach place that looks just like a completely normal piece of scenery, and then you walk into the next screen, and then you can get that thing there. So it was just a nice little secret. If you thought to do that, that's what you would get. And like there would even be an NPC there that would say you're not supposed to be here. So I like that about the game. It's not anywhere near on the level of Cave Story, but it's like cool. There are these nice little touches like that. I go back and play it, and they added a door that comes down after you beat that boss that prevents you from backtracking through the level. They made it an only New Game Plus thing now. That like not anybody can find it, but why would you do that? It like went back and removed charm and an interesting part of the game for no fucking reason. I don't understand it, and it really pissed me off. It really like soured my view of that game.
Damn.
I don't know who made that decision. It's just baffling. That's stupid. Shouldn't do that. That was a nice part of the game. There are 3 upgrade tiers to it. The first one's not even that good, and that's really the only one you can get early. So it's just, you shouldn't. What was the thought process? Explain it, Skippy. Fuck.
Sorry.
This is your fault. This was your decision.
I don't think it is.
Well, we'll agree to disagree. $85.
$85.
$85.
Man, I'm gonna have to check that one out.
But I'll waive the penalties.
Well,
your pocket tickets have tripled. Take as long as you want to pay.
I wanted to mention something. I think it's out, or it's at least coming out very, very, very soon. Neo.
Yeah, it came out yesterday.
Are you gonna get that?
I thought I was going to, but I don't have the fire really for it.
Yeah.
Plus, I still got to finish The Last Guardian.
Sure. I feel like it's I haven't ever really been excited for it because it's so much like Dark Souls. It's too much like Dark Souls. And I'm okay with games, wearing their influences on their sleeve and just going with it. But not when the games that they're doing that are not when their influences are so good that there's no way it's going to surpass that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be better than Dark Souls.
Right, exactly.
So you're just going to be constantly comparing it to Dark Souls, which is probably a lot better, and that can't be to the benefit of this game. And so I don't know. It looks fine, demo. But like, I mean, what did you think?
Like the comparisons to Dark Souls are many, obvious. Yeah. So, like, you can't help but draw these comparisons.
Yeah.
For one, everything is more bland. Like, it doesn't have that, like, unique angle and world that Dark Souls just is bleeding.
Yeah.
So, it's like kind of a medieval Japan place with demons, and it's cool, but it's not, like, actually atmospheric. It feels like levels, like, running around a video game level. And the combat, it honestly just I don't exactly know how to describe it, but it doesn't feel fair, or at least like not as fair as Dark Souls. It doesn't feel like every time you get hit it's your fault necessarily. There's some like unpredictable animations from enemies and just stuff that you can't really avoid unless you're being overly cautious and chipping away one piece at a time. And they're like the focus on switching stances. You have like a light attack, a medium attack, and a heavy attack stance, and you switch between these stances. The act of like having to switch between the stances is kind of like it's cumbersome. I'm not the combat itself, when you're like really roiled up in it and dodging attacks and countering very quickly, it's very active and exciting and fun. But like overall, the combat system is more like clunky. It's not just like immediately. I don't know how to really describe it. I didn't even get all that much time with it, probably like 3 hours total. But so yeah, the combat was very cool, but for some reason still never hit that Dark Souls fair, rewarding loop of combat. And then probably the most egregious flaw of the demo is that I felt like I was fighting the same enemy always. Like, they were guys with different weapons, but you fight them all approximately the same, except for these huge demon guys who are all the same enemy and model. Maybe that was just the demo. I don't want to judge the game from only that first level demo, but
I just think maybe if a Dark Souls game hadn't come out last year, I'd be starved enough of that kind of game to want to play it more. Exactly. But like, yeah, I don't know. I was curious. We
just got a Dark Souls 3 DLC. We're just about to get another one.
Yeah.
So
I was curious just because it seems like a lot of people are pretty excited for it, but I'm not feeling the burn. Yeah, there's not all that many games that I'm still excited for. At one point I was really looking forward to Horizon Zero Dawn or whatever.
I still
the closer it gets to release, and I don't even think there's been people making fun of like like the voice acting and animations and stuff. I've seen some videos of that flying around, and I think people are being overly harsh on it. So that's not the reason that I'm kind of not so excited for that game, but it's just like the closer it gets to release, the less I feel like I need to play that game. Like it just seems like. Have I frozen? Can you hear me?
The last thing I heard was the less you feel you need to play that game.
Yeah, I just don't really feel like I need to play it. It's just not doing it for me. But I don't know. Maybe it'll come out and people will be really, really positive on it.
When's that supposed to come out?
I don't know. They're releasing some videos on it, so it can't be too far. But
February 28th, it's supposed to come out.
Oh wow, okay.
So
yeah,
I mean, the environment looks so amazing, and the setting and premise
it's cool.
are very, very cool.
I'm just I guess I'm skeptical partly because it's like Sony and they just had their No Man's Sky thing. And,
that does not enter my mind at all. I mean,
I
No Man's Sky was like it was one of those Sony's promoting this game, but it's not a Sony game. This is a first party exclusive published. It's a different
the
thing.
way that they've hyped up stuff in the past has made me a little bit skeptical, maybe overly cautious, but it just seems like I've been a little bit wary of that game ever since really they first started showing it when they showed like some of the menus and stuff, and I realized how much it looked like The Witcher 3 with the menus, and I think the way it plays looks a lot like The Witcher 3, and the whole concept of their open world feels a lot like Witcher 3. And that's another game that I don't think will benefit from the comparison. Maybe not, really its fault for not being as good as what I think is one of the best games of all time, but that's how it goes. So maybe that's part of what's made me kind of wary of it. But yeah, I'm not sold on that game yet. But I'm almost definitely going to get a PS4 in the next like several months because I really, really want to play Persona 5. So maybe that will be one that I get, but
how much of Bloodborne have you actually played, you punk?
I've played most of it. What's
the last thing you did? Or place you remember?
There's the boss that has. I'm trying to remember what the boss looked like. It's hard to describe places in that game because it's like, it's the
Not really.
It's the place that looks
I
like
remember them all by name.
Really?
Yeah.
It doesn't. They don't stick in my mind the way. I mean, I can picture them, but I can't describe them apart from each other.
Maybe you were playing on like a borrowed system, right? Or like
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was the ability to like just pour over it for hours and hours and hours every day I wanted.
Yeah, I don't know. I've played definitely over. I would say definitely well over a dozen hours of it. I don't know. I probably do need to complete it eventually, but I'm still just like I don't feel like I'm missing out all that much. I would rather play the Dark Souls 3 DLC first than the Bloodborne to finish Bloodborne.
You're icky.
Sorry.
Icky to me. Legit though, that DLC I think is the best content in the series. Yeah. Like, and I don't even think it's like close.
Well.
Mm.
When are you gonna finish The Witcher 3, bitch? When are you gonna play that DLC?
Except in that case, it's not like I'm saying, it's not doing it for me. It's not all that memorable.
Not saying that about Bloodborne either, though. I'm just saying, like, I don't feel like I need to finish it. It's not that I don't like it. If I get a PS4, I'm gonna finish Bloodborne, but I'm not in a hurry.
I don't know. The Witcher 3 is like really, really thick.
Oh yeah.
And I honestly can't like play it for 6 hours or something. Or like I can, but then I don't play it the next day or then for months after. Like I don't know what it is, but I'll do like a substantial chunk of the story or something. Like I'll play all the way through like most of the Skellige main story. Do that in like almost one sitting, just taking it all in. But then after that, it's like I need to breathe.
There's definitely a pacing you have to hit with it that I didn't hit very well when I first started playing it. I went through one very, very major gap of playing it where like I got up to the main city area where you're having to like talk to dandelions females, and I stopped playing for a few months, and then when I went back to it and I started playing it bit by bit every day, I got into the rhythm and finished it pretty quickly. And then I took another big break because I didn't want to get buy the DLCs yet because I had other games to play and I just wasn't sold on them yet. And then I finally bought those, and oh, God, the DLC is just so fucking good. It's the best stuff in that game.
I've been told, and I believe it too. I gotta finish that.
Yeah, you do. It's great. Anyway, I don't think I have any news.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to mention was that Neo came out.
Yeah, I heard that the sequel to Deus Ex might be canceled, might be canned. I guess that game didn't sell as well as they wanted it to, maybe. But
yeah, it has much mainstream appeal.
That's one that I've been meaning to finish for a while now and haven't gone back to. Maybe I'll finish it eventually, but it just didn't it didn't have the same magic as Human Revolution did. But yeah, all right.
One stupid thing I wanted to mention. I just saw like minutes before we started, and it just made me laugh. People need to stop trying to make The Witness.
Is that happening?
I saw 2 indie dev puzzle games, walking simulator puzzle games, exploring a big open environment, with like kind of abstract visual style, and like it wasn't like exactly like The Witness style because it wouldn't be nowhere near that good, but Eastshade and Leaving Lindau, there are 2 games that are basically indistinguishable. That if you showed me screenshots or video of either game and asked me which one it was, I've seen like 10 or so minutes of footage from each, and I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you. It is like a whimsical, forested, kind of towny environment, and you walk around and you solve puzzles. And, I don't know, maybe the puzzles themselves will be interesting, whatever, but it really feels like they're trying to do The Witness from what I saw.
Yeah.
And there's no way it can.
Man, The Witness. Speaking of The Witness, speaking of things you need to play, it's pretty good.
I've never been that big a fan of pure puzzle games.
I know.
Don't get into them. And I just don't enjoy. It feels like doing work. I don't like having to just solve a puzzle for its own sake. I don't really get that much enjoyment out of it. I don't know.
I would have said the same thing about myself before playing it though.
Okay.
And I got pretty addicted to those puzzles. Like I had to solve those puzzles. It sticks in your mind. It's a little worm that digs its way in, and you go like, "Holy shit, I need to solve this puzzle." But anyway, that's all I got.
Yeah, me as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Been Pushed to Shout 101 episode. 102 comes after 101, so watch out for that. It does. And guys, good morning.
Shut the fuck up. In the
I'd also like to say